The moment the little girl's voice echoed across the quiet bookstore, it felt as if time itself cracked open. Her small finger pointed straight at a woman standing between rows of hardcovers, and the man beside her went rigid, so completely still it seemed he had forgotten how to breathe. His heart slammed against his ribs, and in that second, the world blurred around him, drowning in a rush of memories he had fought so hard to bury. The child didn't know what she had just done. But the woman did. And the look in her eyes, wide, stunned, trembling with something like hope, threatened to collapse everything the man had tried to rebuild. If you're watching this and you believe in kindness, reconciliation, and the power of second chances, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps more stories like this reach those who might need them. Marcus Hale never expected a simple Saturday afternoon in a Seattle bookstore to pull apart the careful stitching that held his life together. He had taken his 7-year-old daughter, Grace, out for their weekly outing, determined to keep things light. Parenting alone wasn't what he ever envisioned, but he embraced it with a resolve born out of heartbreak and responsibility. After his divorce 3 years ago, he had worked tirelessly to create a safe world for Grace, one without volatility, confusion, or reminders of what their family used to be. He poured every ounce of himself into fatherhood, making pancakes shaped like animals, reading her to sleep each night, braiding her hair even though he was terrible at it. Grace was his anchor, his purpose, and the one irreplaceable joy that made him believe life still held goodness. But Marcus also carried a wound few people knew about, one cut not by his ex-wife but by someone he had once thought would change his life forever. Her name was Claire Winslow. She had been his closest friend for nearly a decade, a woman whose presence steadied him during the darkest parts of his failing marriage. They were never romantic, at least, not officially, but everyone around them saw what they refused to acknowledge. They loved each other quietly, carefully, reverently. Yet life had a way of demanding decisions, and when Marcus's divorce got messy, he felt forced to choose between protecting Claire from the chaos or clinging to her in desperation. He chose distance. And in doing so, he broke both of their hearts. He never told Grace about Claire. She had been too young to understand back then, and Marcus believed erasing the past would keep things simple. He didn't anticipate that Grace, during a school field trip months earlier, would wander off for a moment and end up talking to a woman near a food truck who happened to recognize the Hale last name on her badge. Marcus had heard the story in passing. Grace said she met a nice lady who knew Daddy, but he brushed it off, assuming it was a teacher or someone from their neighborhood. He didn't ask further. He didn't want more ghosts. Yet now, as Grace's voice cut through the air, Marcus finally understood. The lady wasn't a stranger. It was Claire. And the shock on her face revealed that she, too, had not expected this moment. The bookstore felt suddenly too small, too bright, too loud with the storm of emotions roaring inside him. He felt Grace tug at his sleeve, excited by the connection she believed she had revealed. Marcus's first instinct was to flee, protect his daughter from confusion, protect himself from reopening wounds, protect Claire from whatever tangled consequences might follow. But his feet wouldn't move. Something stronger held him in place, something he had spent years denying, the ache of unfinished chapters. In the silence that stretched on, Marcus became aware of how tired he was. Tired of pretending the past didn't matter. Tired of avoiding places he might see her. Tired of wondering whether she hated him, missed him, or had forgotten him entirely. And now, facing her, really seeing her for the first time in years, he realized avoidance had never healed anything. It had only numbed him. Grace, oblivious to the emotional battlefield between the adults, tugged again and announced that the lady had told her she missed her dad. Marcus felt the words like a physical blow, a mixture of sweetness and sorrow flooding his chest. He remembered Claire's kindness, her patience, her laughter that always softened the edges of his hardest days. He remembered how she stayed by his side during nights when he confessed he didn't believe love was meant for him anymore. He remembered how she believed in him when he had trouble believing in himself. It was then he noticed something in Claire, something fragile but luminous. She wasn't angry. She wasn't cold. She looked as though she was trying not to cry. Marcus's heart began to thaw, though fear still gripped him tightly. He had spent so long convincing himself she was better off without him, that dragging her into his mess would only burden her. But looking at her now, standing with a book pressed to her hand like a shield, he saw a woman who had waited silently for a chapter that never got written. The tension eased only when Grace, with her usual bright innocence, skipped toward a nearby shelf and began browsing picture books. Her presence allowed a sliver of air between Marcus and Claire, enough for him to gather himself. In that space, memories swirled not like daggers but like gentle reminders of what once brought him peace. For the first time in years, Marcus allowed himself to feel the full weight of regret. He wished he had been braver. He wished he had reached out. He wished he had trusted that Claire didn't see him as a burden but as someone worth loving even through chaos. But most of all, he wished he hadn't walked away without giving her the chance to decide whether she wanted to stay. As Grace continued flipping through books, Marcus realized that life rarely hands people moments like this, unplanned, unscripted collisions with destiny. Maybe, he thought, this wasn't a mistake. Maybe it was mercy. Slowly, like someone stepping through a door they had once been afraid to open, Marcus softened his gaze toward Claire. She seemed to sense the shift, because her shoulders relaxed slightly, and her lips curved in something that resembled a smile, shy, uncertain, hopeful. It hit him then just how much he had missed her, not the idea of her, not the memory of her, but her. What followed between them wasn't a dramatic confrontation or an instant rekindling, but rather a quiet unfolding of truth. Marcus felt like a man learning to breathe again, and though they exchanged only a few cautious sentences, the weight of their silence spoke louder than words. They were both hurting. They were both healing. And neither of them seemed ready to walk away this time. Over the next weeks, something unexpected began to happen, something gentle, delicate, and deeply human. Marcus and Claire found themselves crossing paths more often, partly by chance and partly because neither of them tried very hard to avoid the possibility anymore. They talked slowly, carefully, but with honesty that had once been missing. They shared fears, past mistakes, the loneliness they had both endured. Grace, without realizing it, became the quiet bridge between them, always brightening whenever Claire appeared, always asking when they could see her again. Marcus struggled with guilt for the time lost, for hurting Claire, for retreating when she had offered comfort. But Claire never scolded him. She had every right to be angry, yet her nature had always been one of grace. Instead, she encouraged him to stop living in the shadows of what-ifs and instead focus on what could still be possible. Her forgiveness didn't come from naivety, it came from understanding. She had loved him once not because he was perfect, but because he was human. Slowly, Marcus allowed himself to believe in something he thought had been destroyed, the possibility of a future not defined by fear or regret, but by healing and newfound hope. As winter melted into spring, the three of them began to form something resembling a family, not forced, not rushed, but naturally, as if life had been waiting for them to reconnect. The turning point came one quiet evening in a small park overlooking the Puget Sound, where Marcus watched Grace and Claire collect cherry blossoms that had fallen onto the grass. The golden sunset wrapped them in soft light, and for the first time, Marcus wasn't haunted by memories of what he had lost. He was grateful for what he still had the chance to build. He realized then that love sometimes requires losing your way before you can find the path meant for you. He realized Claire's patience had been an act of courage. And he realized Grace, with her innocent honesty, had given him the greatest gift, another chance to fight for someone who mattered deeply. As their lives continued to intertwine, Marcus learned that healing wasn't a single event but a continuous unfolding. And Claire, with her gentle resilience, became not just a presence from his past, but a promise for his future. One built not on fear, but on faith. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us bring more stories of hope, grace, and second chances to those who need them. Before we close,